Hello and welcome to the Lifelong Recreation Travel Show for winter and spring of 2024. It seems we have used up all of our good weather karma on the trips, and so I know that today may be a little icy or cold for some of you, and that's why we've decided to go ahead and offer this online as well. You can still contact me with questions. I'll have my contact information at the end of the show, and the recreation centers can also help you out. So let's take a look at just a few of the details, the trip types and the content of them. We are offering both day trips and area field trips this year. Those area field trips are generally in the county or nearby and a half a day. We're also changing the itineraries a little bit. You'll see a little more flexibility and some shorter days. That's in part by request. People wanted a little less of an energy commitment and also a little less of a financial commitment. But I think you'll still find a real variety and good quality stops on all these trips. You can register in person at any recreation center. You can register online or you can register by mail. We have made registering online, I think, a little easier, and I'm going to give you just a few quick screenshots. If you go to our main website, lprd.org, and just click on online enrollment, it'll take you to this page of photos, and you just click on adult programming and then click on trips. That'll bring you to all the trips that we're talking about today and some additional trips that are being offered by Prairie Park Nature Center, one of our partners in the department, and maybe even some other opportunities. I always mention wait lists because wait lists are a good thing. Wait lists are a chance for you to sign up for a trip that may be full, but people's plans change. And so there's no cost and there's no commitment to signing up for a wait list. If a spot opens up, we'll call and see if you're still interested, and we'll process the payment then. It's nice for me to have wait lists because that means if somebody does cancel, oftentimes I can make them happy with a full refund and I can make you happy because a spot has become available. So please don't hesitate to sign up for a wait list. The travel letter is something you'll get 7 to 10 days before we actually depart on the trip. And that's when you'll get the detailed itinerary. What time are we leaving? Where are we leaving from? What's for lunch? And when can we plan to return? Those details are generally fleshed out on your receipt, but we don't really nail down the details until we have a menu and a final count. So you will receive that travel letter usually by email, sometimes in the postal mail. Our group size, we are using department vehicles this year in the spring. So that means our van for very small groups and our bus, which is generally what we use. And that means there's 12 to 20 people in the group. I think it's a nice size. You can talk to everybody, get to know each other, and it really adds a social element to our trips. So I appreciate everyone's patience and friendly demeanor when we're on the bus. Special needs, if you have dietary restrictions or if you have ambulation concerns, please let me know ahead of time. Oftentimes, well, like at the new theater, I can request a seat or a table that has fewer, if any, stairs. We can always ask for vegetarian. Sometimes there's other dietary restrictions that I'd like to do my best to meet. So please don't hesitate to tell me that. And then changes, deadlines, cancellations. It seems that's the only thing that is constant right now is change. So I always have that disclaimer. Something might happen. A restaurant might go out of business. The federal government may shut down. So I will let you know those changes as soon as I do, and they will always be in the travel letter unless they're at the last minute, and then I'll give you a call. So that's the business work. Let's go ahead and look at our first trip. This is coming up really soon. So if you're interested, please sign up today or very soon. Last year, we went to the Black Archives of Mid-America, and it was such an interesting trip, a really quality exhibit and tour. And I realized how much more there is in the neighborhood that you forget that sometimes things are right in your backyard. So we are going to go back to 18th and Vine, and destinations will be the American Jazz Museum and the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. These are both important parts of American history that sort of escaped our formal school education, at least oftentimes. So we're going to look at the critical role of African Americans in the culture in both music and sports. They do not have formal tours. So what we'll be doing is I'm going to share with you a really great documentary from PBS about these museums in your travel letter, and then we'll be self-guided. They're really set up well for that. They host a Jazz at Noon concert in the Blue Room on first Thursdays. That's one of the on Thursdays. That's one of the reasons we're going. And then we're going to go ahead and swing by for lunch on your own at Gates Barbecue on the way home. Gates started in that same 18th and Vine neighborhood, and everybody's got a different opinion about barbecue. So we're just going to order lunch on our own that day. The next trip is to Emporia. And one of my soapboxes is that Kansas matters. We've been a bellwether in journalism and politics historically and recently. The past year we visited Marion, Kansas, where the newspaper was having a significant First Amendment battle, and then the vote on abortion rights last year. So right, wrong, good or bad, we are often looked at as a bellwether for the country. And Emporia is a really good example of that historically, because William Allen White, as a prize-winning journalist, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, was also a political advisor on the federal level. 5 different presidents visited him in his home, Red Rocks, in Emporia, Kansas. So we're going to start the day at William Allen White's home, and then we're going to do a step-on guide history tour of Emporia. We've worked with this man before. His name is Roger Heineken, and he does a great job. Then lunch at Radius Brewing, a personal favorite. And before we leave town, a tour of the Granada Theater. It's one of those gorgeous theaters built in the 20s before the Depression changed the movie business and the Hays Code changed the movie business. And so it's just gorgeous, and the restoration has been really impressive. So we'll get a tour of that, a little history of the restoration, and it's to another reason to stop by Emporia and just for that trip. St. Joseph, Missouri. I could St. Joe. I have gone to St. Joe so many, and you never have to repeat a stop. So we're going back and we're going to start at the Paty Museum, which has been so many things. It was the offices and home Pony Express. It was used in the Civil War. It was a women's college, a major production company, place for clothing. It's 3 stories of history, and it's large enough that a train fits downstairs. So we'll get a nice introduction and formal background of the museum before time on our own for touring. Then we're going to go to J.C. Wyatt House. If anyone's ever been to St. Joe with me, you know that J.C. Wyatt House is enough reason to go. This is a beautiful Victorian mansion that serves meals only by appointment, and they are restaurateurs who relocated from New York, and they are just gracious hosts and delicious meals, and they don't let you choose dessert. You have to have 3 different desserts. So I think it's a good policy. We'll then go to the Albrecht Kemper Museum, which is a surprisingly complete and wonderful collection of American art with a focus on Midwest regionalism. And so you're going to see original Thomas Hart Benton's, Thomas Curry's. And then we'll finally end the day at the Remington Nature Center. And they build this as where history and nature collide. And it's true, they do a really great job of doing a parallel of human history in the area next to natural history. I have a picture here of the mammoth, the woolly mammoth that has been recreated. They also have a live freshwater tank for the fish. And if the weather's nice, and you never know, March can go either way, it's a lovely walk right along the river. So that's St. Joseph, Missouri on Tuesday, March 26th. Kansas Wonders. I decided to focus on two things. Ken Burns' recent fine documentary on bison made me remember that it's been a while since we've done a agri-tour with bison. So we are going to go to the Crown B Bison Ranch. And those of you who have heard my story of being sniffed by a buffalo and the amazement of how large these animals really are up close, the Crown B staff told me to be prepared that you have to be okay with getting licked by a bison on this tour because we will go out into the field and they do have a herd that has been domesticated enough that that's a possibility. So we'll be touring the Crown B Bison Ranch, and we're also going to go through Topeka and visit the Tiffany Windows at First Presbyterian Church. This church is one of the downtown churches that's still working to stay viable, but the Tiffany glass windows are amazing. Louis Tiffany directly supervised the design and the installation of these windows. They are perfect examples of how he created color and texture inherent in the glass surface. And they actually have a second small chapel with very fine stained glass windows, but they provide a chance to go and compare, and you realize that what is a very fine stained glass window really pales in comparison to a Tiffany window. That's a fairly short day. We'll leave early in the morning and be wrapped up by early afternoon, so there's no lunch on that trip. Then we're going to try a new theater. We're going to go to the Missouri Rep in Kansas City to see Little Shop of Horrors, and we've all been humming that song every time we work on the handouts for this program today. But it's a fun musical, and it's a lot of fun. Then we're going to start at Lydia's for the pasta trio dinner on our way in. So that is Little Shop of Horrors at the Missouri Rep. I can tell you that our seats are on the main floor, and we're in rows D and E. So pretty good seats, and I'm sure what will be a great show. And then the Watkins Mill, which is north of Excelsior Springs. This is a fascinating little slice of history. The Watkins Mill was a woolen mill, and it was built top of the line technology at its time, but technology was changing rapidly. And so it was in place. It was kind of a company town. The workers lived there. They were self-sustaining. And then the Civil War came. And the Civil War affected Watkins Mill in two ways. First, it was right on the line between the Union and Confederacy. So it was surrounded by different armies at different times. It was a very hotbed area during the Civil War. But also, garment production radically changed during the Civil War because of the need for uniforms on both sides. So it became very modernized. By the end of the war, they were no longer a competitive model, and they literally closed the door and locked it and left everything just the way it was. So here you've got a 19th century textile mill with its original machinery intact. And it's just like you brought the sheep in the front door and a blanket came out the back door. It's really fascinating. They've done a good job, obviously, of restoring the mill, also of restoring the beautiful, elegant home that was there. And they've maintained gardens with heirloom animals and heirloom plants to protect the genetic diversity from that era. When we leave there, we're going to stop in Excelsior Springs at the Willow Spring Mercantile, which is a winery and gift shop. They have a lovely lunch. Then we'll tour the Excelsior Springs Museum and Archives, followed by a little time for a walking tour on your own. They have different walking tours that you can self-guide with. I'll have maps for everybody. And some of you might want to just shop because the shops are also pretty amazing in Excelsior Springs. So that's the Watkins Mill in Excelsior Springs on Friday, May 17th. We're going to Disney 100, the exhibition that's going to be at Union Station. They have created 10 different galleries with each one having the popular characters, films, shows. They'll have film clips, they'll have costumes, they'll have pieces of the sets and everything that will take you through all 100 years of the Disney company from the original. And I put Walt Disney here because remember, he started out in Kansas City, right outside of town. He grew up in Marceline. And it'll also include some of the new franchises, your Marvel and your Star Wars and those films. So whatever film era you are a fan of, Disney was a part of it. And then we're going to kick off summer with a very lovely summer night, hopefully as summery and nice as today is wintry and cold. So lawn chairs and blankets are encouraged. We're going to start at the Somerset Schoolhouse. This is a 1920s schoolhouse that a local couple, their family had attended it back when it was a schoolhouse. They've restored it, and now it serves as a meeting place. They've got a whiskey club of the lovely bar. They've got gift shop, and they've got a backyard where they do live music on the patio and games. We drove by it on the way to a winery last year, and a couple of you mentioned that it was an interesting place. So we're going to stop there for a light charcuterie and beverages, and then we'll go on to Lewisburg to the Powell Observatory. This was built and is managed by the Astronomical Society of Kansas City, and they have one of the largest telescopes open to the public in a 5-state area. So they do public programs, which we will attend, and the imaging from that telescope will be shown remotely on a screen. And then they also have community telescopes for people to do star viewing with somebody who can help you understand and explain what it is you're seeing. So we'll be providing red flashlights, and you'll provide your lawn chair and dress for the outdoors. We'll kick off summer under the stars. Then I mentioned we have some walking tours coming up and local travel. The first one will be with Dr. Bob Dinsdale, and it's his walking tour of Jayhawk Boulevard from one end. You've got Dan Chapel to the other, what I still call Hoke Auditorium, or Budig Hall now. And this will be on Wednesday, April 17th. We will likely meet at Holcomb and carpool up there so we don't have to deal with parking, which is the downside of KU and Jayhawk Boulevard. But any of you who have traveled with Dr. Bob before know that he does a lot of research, and he will tell you the history from before humans were even in this area. And we know that the Oregon Trail crossed campus, and then the history of each building and how campus has evolved over the years. Tree Treasures of Old Lawrence was the first tree tour I think I ever went on, and it was fascinating. What we're going to do this year is John is going to take us back on the original route, which will focus on East and North Lawrence. We'll look at championship trees, historically significant trees, and learn a little bit about the champion tree program, how those are selected, and some of the human history too, like in the East Bottoms and the Hispanic neighborhoods that came up along the railway. So that's with John Standing on Saturday, May 4th, Tree Treasures of Old Lawrence. Then Dr. Bob's going to take us back to East Lawrence. This was full last year when we did it, and it was very popular, so we're going to go ahead and repeat it. Wednesday, May 15th, we'll do a walking tour of the Voices of East Lawrence, and plan to walk about a mile total and over some of those romantic and sometimes bumpy brick sidewalks. But he'll talk a lot about the history, the people, and the names that we've heard, but we didn't know where they were tied. We'll look at their homes, we'll get the stories of how they ended up there and what their influence was on the entire city of Lawrence. And then our final local field trip for the spring is Footprints of the Prairie. We're going to be partnering with the Grassland Heritage Foundation, and we're going to tour 3 different prairies, and that look at the difference between a remnant prairie, a restored prairie, and a reconstructed prairie. Once we understand that, we can learn what we do to protect and preserve what is remaining. And those of us who have went down to the tallgrass prairie this past year know that about 4% of the original 1.7 million acres of prairie still exists in America. So this will be a fascinating trip. We'll start at the East Lawrence Center. We're going to the Aiken Prairie, Prairie Park, the Prairie Park Restoration Project, and the Rockefeller Prairie up at the field station. So you'll see a lot, you'll learn a lot, and we'll also be supporting the Grassland Heritage Foundation. Canadian Rockies and Glacier National Park is our next trip with Colette. It's in September, but the deadline is coming for registration is coming up in March. I'm going to not go into a lot of detail on that today, but if you have any questions, please call me and I will send you this link, or you can copy it right here and we'll give you all the information. But this is a chance to see, well, prairie, mountains, historic buffalo jump, beautiful, beautiful area. Glacier National Park is probably one of my favorites in the country. And Colette has always been a good partner for us. They'll take good care of you. So registration opens today, January 11th, and it'll be in the lobby at Holcomb. Also, as I said, online at lprd.org, at any Lawrence Recreation Center, or you can drop it in the mail. We'll take it. So again, my name is Gail. You can reach me at 785-832-7909 if you have any questions. Thanks for taking the time to join us today.